For many, it's the feeling of holding your first baby in your arms and knowing that life has just changed forever. Our guest, Karine Burns, felt it, but as she looked into her son's eyes, there was a big question there too. Who held me? And why was I placed up for adoption? Karine wrote to us about being taken into a loving family at just a few days old, yet still needing to get to those answers. But her search was not an easy one. Karine is here. Hello. Hello. Welcome to the programme. Thanks very much for getting in touch and for coming down from Glasgow today, where you are an innovation and business growth enabler.
Yeah.
What's one of those?
I work with small businesses to help them grow, to develop new products and services. So it's great to get to work with lots of different businesses of all different shapes and sizes.
Mm-hmm. And you told us when you wrote to us that you provided the gift of a daughter to a fabulous couple, George and Christine Brown, who were unable to have children of their own, and that they were and always will be your mum and dad. Tell us what life was like growing up with them.
My mum and dad were just lovely, loving people. My mum was a piano teacher. My dad was a salesman in the steel industry and worked really hard, but he was really into community. He was a socialist, very much a socialist in the broad sense of the word as well, and always fighting for the underdog. He was a really keen golfer. He encouraged me to play golf as well, but it was just a very loving upbringing. We went on holiday to Arran. We had very simple pleasures. I felt very loved.
I'm really struck by that word gift as well. When were you aware that you had been adopted?
I don't ever remember not knowing, so there wasn't a point where my parents sat me down and said, oh, by the way. So as far as I can remember, I always knew I was adopted. My sister is also adopted, but we're not related. Quite strange, in the street that I grew up in, we were in a small cul-de-sac with only 40 houses in it, and out of that there was 7 households had children that were adopted in it. It was absolutely amazing.
Gosh.
So I also grew up with other people, so it wasn't unusual. There wasn't any stigma around it at all.
So there was no questioning for you growing up?
No, not at all. And sometimes I do remember others trying to tease me about it or say, oh, you're adopted, and trying to make me feel bad about it. And I never did. My mum and dad were my mum and dad, and I was loved. It's the fact I was adopted was really irrelevant in the grand scheme of things, Shan. So
yeah. A happy childhood then, and you got married.
Yep.
At what age?
I was 21, so I was quite young.
It is?
Married.
Yeah.
I had met my husband Walter actually through playing badminton. We played at the same badminton club. And then we obviously dated. We got married when I was 21, and then we decided we'd try for a family when I was sort of 29, just coming up for 30. And we had our first child.
And that's George.
That's George.
Yeah, 1996.
Yeah.
What was that moment like when you gave birth and you held him?
Well, it was actually quite traumatic because I'd ended up having to go in and get a forceps delivery, so I was a bit spaced out. However, when I held George, and this poor little bashed face, he'd been a forceps delivery, so he had like a boxer's nose, he had a coconut shaped head. I look back, it wasn't the most attractive. Darling, if you're listening to this, I do love you, but it wasn't very attractive.
You grew into your face, love. That's all we can say.
Thank you. But yeah, it was just amazing. You've had this entity inside you for 9 months. I didn't know whether it was a boy or a girl, but it was just this overwhelming feeling of love and just so much emotion and so much attachment to this little person that was so dependent on me.
And when you're holding George in your arms, your thoughts went to your own birth, to your own mother?
Yeah, I'd always wondered. There was always a little hole. I always felt I had a little hole inside me where I didn't know. And I then started to think, it's like, I cannot imagine having this little person and having to give them away. I just couldn't imagine it. And the trauma and what she must have gone through.
Did you know the circumstances of your own birth?
I knew my birth mum was from Dublin and that she came from a middle class family. She was 18. She fell pregnant. Her parents were not impressed. That wasn't what they would want or expect from their daughter. She was sent away to England to stay with a friend of her mother's. And again, having been pregnant and just experiencing the stresses of that, even before the birth, of how that must have felt to be on your own. I just, again, couldn't imagine how lonely and scary that must have felt for a young woman to go through that.
Really alienating and quite frightening, I imagine.
Absolutely.
As well. So, what were the first steps you took then when you thought, you know what, this hole in me needs to be filled?
Well, I was very fortunate, as I said, because I had the adoption records and I had the name and the address of the lady that she stayed with just outside Hexham. So I wrote to her and she wrote back to me to say that she'd be delighted. I asked if I could meet her and she said she'd be delighted to meet me. And that would be about the year 2000, something like that, 2001. And it was just lovely. She was very nice. She was originally from Edinburgh. So Margaret told me that my birth mum didn't want to give me up, but she had no choice. That my birth mum, when she got married, they had 4 children. So a daughter and 3 sons. She gave me a photograph, which was amazing to see her.
Did she look like you?
She did. Different colouring, but what was spooky was I had a photograph. So this photograph was taken of her with her eldest daughter, and I have got a picture taken of me at my mum's flat with myself and my son George and my daughter Joanna, and it was uncanny. And I showed it to some friends and they had a double take. It was like, oh, that's you. Oh, no, it's not you.
What was that like for you, looking at your birth mother with her children? Because you are her child.
I actually felt really excited, to be honest, to see it, yeah.
Because you were looking at your half-siblings.
I was looking at my half-siblings. I'm looking at my birth mum. I've never seen her. I didn't know what she looked like. And she looked like me, or I looked like her a bit. I didn't feel in any way, oh, I should be there, because I had my mum and dad. I've got all my pictures of me with my mum and dad in these situations. So it really was sort of joy and excitement to think, wow.
When you looked at that picture, what came up then for you?
I had a very strong desire to make contact, and it was just like, oh wow, that's amazing. I've got 2 half siblings that I knew about, and then it turned out there's actually another 2 half siblings. So she had four children with her husband, and I knew that they were in New Zealand. I never felt anything negative towards her at all. And this was when the feeling of the gift again came about, because I get a bit emotional just thinking about it. It was a gift, and I know how traumatic it must have been for her to give that gift. And I wrote her a letter. I didn't know if it'd ever be delivered to her, but I just wanted to know that I'm okay. You know, I've had a great upbringing, I've had a great life, and I just want you to know I'm okay.
I'm thinking of her opening it and reading the letter.
Yeah. Well, she never got the letter because it was never sent to her. So what had happened was I met this lady who my birth mum had stayed with, and I'd asked her would she be willing to give me the address? And she thought about it and she said no. She said, I'm not comfortable with that, because she had a relationship with my birth mum still and they were in contact, and she didn't want to do anything to damage that, which I could I could understand. So what I did was I contacted a social worker in their local council, and they wrote, so this lady gave the social worker my birth mum's address, and it's done in a very anonymous way. There's nothing said about adoption or anything, and it's something along the lines of there's a family member looking to make contact. It's very generic, which I guess in case somebody else opens the letter and you don't want these sort of details necessarily getting mentioned. And that letter was sent, and unfortunately the reply came back to say that she didn't want to make contact with me. I was really gutted. I howled. I absolutely howled.
Yeah.
With tears for quite a long time, and it took me probably a couple of weeks to calm down. And as I processed that and realised she might not have told her husband, her children might not know, it might have been so traumatic for her that she just didn't want to deal with it. She would just want to park it away, keep it in the box. I didn't know why, but again, I thought, at the end of the day, she knows I'm there, and hopefully she knows that I'm okay. And I could understand. It's complicated. It's very complicated, and I was okay with that.
Very complicated. She also hadn't seen your letter, had she?
No.
So all the things you wanted to say to her about the kind of life that you'd lived, that you had been this incredible gift to George and Christine, that you understood that she was young and she'd been sent away in disgrace and she couldn't keep you, all those sort of things that you expressed in writing. She never saw.
No. And that letter, it still exists, and it's with her cousin, because I had, as part of my research, I had found her cousin who lived in Dublin, and I had met him and his wife, so the letter is with them, and I had asked them if and when she maybe visited that they would share it, but I know because I've spoken to them, so they've still got the letter.
25 years
25
later.
years later.
It's still sitting there with all those thoughts which you still feel.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There was some grief there then, loss.
Yep.
Rejection.
I didn't feel I was rejected as a baby because that wasn't the situation, but I did feel rejected at that point.
What about your birth father? What did you know about him?
Only what was in the adoption records. It said the putative father was a friend of the family, a friend of my birth mum's brother, and somebody that was trusted implicitly, that when he found out that my birth mum was pregnant, he apparently wanted nothing to do with it, and that marriage wasn't an option. Didn't know his name, didn't know anything about him at all.
Nothing.
So basically I just had to leave it. I left it until 3 years ago. My cousin, as in my adopted family's cousin Hester Coley, she does a lot of genealogy as a hobby, and Hester's going right back to 1650 in our family tree. It's absolutely fascinating.
It's like being a detective, isn't it? You've got this missing piece of the jigsaw. You filled a lot of it in, but there's still this
giant hole.
This giant hole.
Absolutely.
Who's your birth father? What's his name? Why did he not want any further contact with your birth mum? What happened to him? Is he still out there?
And it was so frustrating because I had so much knowledge about all of this other stuff, all my adopted family, and it wasn't till 3 years ago, and Hester said, "Have you done a DNA test?" I said no. And of course I fully expected that all of the answers were going to come out there. It was just going to be presented back to me. Here's your family, here's your birth father. And of course that doesn't happen. But I had hundreds and hundreds of cousins and things of, 5 times removed cousins all over the world that were related through the DNA. I was just so dedicated to I'm going to get to the bottom of this now.
When did you finally get an aha moment? How did that come?
Well, that all happened very, very quickly. What's great in Ancestry is you can message people. And there was a second cousin, Philip Blythman, who is a photographer. We'd been chatting, and I knew I was related to him through my birth father, and it was related through an aunt of his, but couldn't quite work out what the connection was. And he said, I really don't know anything. But I then told him the story of my birth mother and what had happened. And he said, I'll reach out to extended family. This was at the end of October last year. And 2 days later came back to me and said, I've just spoken to my uncle, Ken Flynn, who confirmed that his brother Derek had a relationship with your birth mother and that she was pregnant. She fell pregnant. And that Derek Flynn is your biological father. Wow. You could have knocked me over with a feather. I always hoped that I would get a name, but I just didn't expect that. And then I was given the information that unfortunately his brother and him were estranged, and Derek had terminal cancer, pancreatic cancer, and didn't have long to live.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh. 5 decades.
I knew pancreatic cancer is one of the aggressive ones, and might have days. I didn't know how long. I thought I've got to do something, so I messaged him straight back. I said, look, I know they're estranged. Can you give me an email address or a phone number? And 2 days later, I got a phone number back for Derek's wife.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, it's almost like your first life-changing moment was when you held your son in your arms, baby George, when you thought, I need to get some questions answered.
Yeah.
This is a long time later now.
Yeah.
Another life-changing moment.
Absolutely. So I probably thought some swear words. It was like, I'm just going to phone the number.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't tell anybody, so I hadn't told anybody I'd got the number. I just thought this is something I need to do on my own. So I didn't tell my husband, didn't tell my kids. I just thought I need to do this. It was a Portuguese number. They live in Portugal. They lived in Portugal for the last 20 years. And I phoned the number, and I got an English lady answered the phone. And I said, is that Diana Flynn? Yeah. You're Derek Flynn's wife? Yes. I said, it's a bit awkward, but I related to Derek. I was given your number. And she said, oh, tell me more. And how you related? I said, well, there's no easy way to say this, but I've just found out from Derek's brother, Ken, that I am Derek's biological daughter. And it was like light touch paper. What's going to happen? Fortunately, she whooped with joy and said, that's amazing. As it turned out that Derek had told her that he'd got a girl pregnant when he was younger, so she was aware it was a pregnancy, so it wasn't a shock.
Did you get him on the phone? Was he well enough to talk to you?
No, because it turns out that she was with her friend on the way to France. So they were selling their holiday house. Because they knew he had a terminal diagnosis, they decided to sort out all their affairs. And she was on the way to France and said, I need to wait till I can't tell him on the phone, which I absolutely agreed with. We had a WhatsApp call a couple of days later when she was still in France, and her and her friend had chatted about it and said, book a flight.
Okay.
So I booked the flight. However, his wife, when she returns to the Algarve on the Friday, she tells him then. And she phoned me to say he was delighted with the news. It was a complete shock. He was absolutely shocked, couldn't believe it.
Tell me about the meeting.
it was amazing. So his wife picked me up from the airport, so I had a bit of a time to sort of acclimatise and have another chat, and we got to their house. It was surreal. It was just like, I don't know, what do we do? What do we say? We just hugged each other. So I've got this, his wife got it, she filmed it on her phone, so this amazing photograph of me and him having a big hug. And it was just amazing to see this person that I realised, God, I can see that I look like him. It was surreal. It was amazing.
What did you say?
I just said, I'm Carrie, I'm your daughter. And he was like, oh, thank you. He just cried. He just didn't know what to say, because he was then overcome with lots of feelings of guilt, lots of negative feelings as well. Not at me, but just the circumstances. And straight off at that, within that first few minutes, you have got nothing to feel guilty about. And that's where I used the gift thing. I said, what happened with you and my birth mother? I said, you gave the gift of me, of a baby girl, to my mum and dad, and they would never have had that opportunity.
There's a lot going on there.
There is a lot.
How were you together with him, and how long were you with him to go through all this?
I actually spent 10 days with them, so they invited me into their house, which was lovely. But it was hard. He's ill. He's very, very ill. Derek, actually, his wife is his second wife, so they've been together for 40 years. So his first wife and he got divorced. So I discovered I've got 2 half brothers in England. There was no doubt it was hard, as we were just trying to get to know each other, trying to sort of navigate 59 years of my life. And what we just tried to get some time when he was feeling up to it and when he was feeling well, for him to tell me a bit of the background and what had happened. And it was interesting to hear his side of the story. He said she came from a very middle class, well-to-do background. His mum and dad were working class, lived in a council house. He said he came home one afternoon to see their posh car parked outside his parents' house. He thought, oh dear, I'm in trouble. And he gets sent to his room, age 18, and then summoned back down the stairs sometime later to be told by her mother, you're never to see each other again. And they didn't. And she was sent away. He didn't know where, didn't know anything about what had happened to her. There was nothing. And I knew that was the case because her cousin had said the same thing. He said she was sent away. She went away with a bad cold to England and never came home again.
She was sent away with a bad cold?
Yes,
to England.
In inverted commas. Right. Yes.
So he never saw your birth mum again?
Nope.
Or knew what had happened to her?
No.
That's horrible for an 18-year-old to have to go through, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, and the other thing that he did say, which actually made me cry, he said we were in love. He said we were really in love. And that broke my heart at the time, because I just thought that is so cruel, to deny a young couple an opportunity. I mean, they might not have made it. They were young, they were 18, and they might never have made it, but they were never even given the opportunity, which is cruel. It's horrible.
And in your email, you said it's been an amazing few weeks, so amazing to finally meet Bungie. That was his nickname, wasn't it?
His nickname.
Story for another time, perhaps.
Yes.
So amazing to finally meet Bungie after almost 59 years. And to top it off, I got to celebrate his 78th birthday with him and die today. I am so blessed. You feel blessed?
Very blessed. I never thought I would get a name, let alone get the chance to meet him, let alone get the chance to get to know him a little bit and to make some memories, which is amazing.
You've opened the box to all these other relatives that you never knew you had, including half siblings, half brothers. You've met one of them, have you not?
I've spoken to him on the phone, and we're hoping to meet in the not too distant future. Yeah.
And your children, who are what, in their 20s now, I guess,
Yeah.
late 20s?
Yeah, so George is 29, Joanna's 27, yeah.
Right, so they've got a whole host of new relatives as well.
Yeah.
How have they responded to all
Yeah, well, we had a Zoom call with Diane Bungee, which was lovely. So it's been a lot for them to take in. They're busy with their own lives, so they're much as they're interested, it's not like it is for me. You know, they don't have that same drive to fill the hole, because they don't have a hole to fill. They know who their parents are, so it's not a big priority to them. But they're very supportive, and they understand why I need to do this for me.
Has that hole inside you been filled yet?
Yeah.
That's a
I
tentative
think-
yes. Is there
Yeah, you're
something
right.
still there about your mother?
Yeah, because much as my biology is 50-50, she's the one that carried me for all those months. She was the one that had to give me up. Sorry.
That's all right.
And I want to try again and see if I can make contact.
You know your birth mother is still around. If she were listening to this programme, what would you want to say to her?
I'd want her to know that I've had a good life. I was loved very much as a child. My parents loved me, and I want to say thank you to her for giving me the opportunity to have this life, and for her giving that gift of that little baby girl to my mum and dad, because it's just an amazing gift. Thank you.
And if you were ever to get to meet her, you could finally give her the letter that you wrote nearly 30 years ago.
Yeah. I would love that opportunity.
Well, we wish you all the very best with whatever happens next. Do let us know, and thank you so much for getting in touch with us and telling us your story. Don't forget, you can catch up with all our extraordinary guests on the Life Changing website, or by subscribing to Life Changing on BBC Sounds. And if you have a story to share, email us. We're at lifechanging@bbc.co.uk. From Karine and from me, goodbye.
Goodbye.
The presenter is Dr. Sian Williams, the producer Tom Alban. It's a BBC Studios production for Radio 4.
There are more atoms in a single glass of